It is 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 8th of November, time for us to call to order this regular board meeting of the Wenatchee School District Board of Directors, beginning with the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I welcome everyone to this board meeting and thank you, those of us who are joining us in person, whether if you join us online or if later you use the recording to keep yourself informed. In all cases, we're grateful for your civic effort and interest. Ofrezco una bienvenida a esta reunión de la mesa directiva del Distrito Escolar. Gracias por su asistencia, si sea en persona, online o usando el video más tarde para mantenerse informado. Agradecemos su esfuerzo cívico. The meeting is conducted in English, but we do have translation services if anyone ever asks us, so that citizen comment may be spoken in Spanish and be repeated in English. Si alguien quiere hacer su comentario de ciudadano o recibir explicaciones en español, por favor indique su necesidad. Tenemos disponible un servicio de traducción. The first item is, are there any requests to modify the agenda? Looking at board members. There being none, I will move on to the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes for the 10/25 regular meeting, vouchers and payroll, the personnel report, the surplus report, contracts, and field trips. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, thank you very much, Julie. Do I have a motion to second that?
I will second the motion.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Left, right. There being no discussion, I will then call for a vote on the consent agenda. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. The consent agenda is unanimously approved. The next item is citizen comment, which is the time for the board to welcome and listen to public comment. Comments do need to be scheduled beforehand. We have a 3-minute time limit. I will warn speakers when their time is about to expire, as it isn't easy to watch the clock. And Kim, do we have anybody online? No. So we have no citizens' comments. And we are moving very rapidly to Superintendent Eagle for his strategic plan update as our special presentation of the night.
Thank you. I am excited to share some updates on the strategic plan with you. And we will get some slides up here for you. Okay, so tonight I want to provide you with just a few quick updates on the work related to our strategic plan. And Ron, if you want to move to the next slide. I can? Okay, perfect. I will run the show then. No problem. So the cabinet team officially launched the strategic plan on August 24th when our entire district met for our opening day celebration. And I know some of you were there for that event. But also for those of you in the community or board members that would like to view the details of our plan, which really means Diana Hagland, created a few ways to access additional information about the plan, including using your phone to scan the QR code that you see on this slide. The plan represents a roadmap to fulfill our district's promise to students over the next 5 years, and it includes many research-based and evidence-based best practices in education. Okay, all right. Thank you, Ron. So this is our promise statement. We promise to build a foundation of diversity, equity, and inclusion from which each student emerges future ready. And as I personally work with staff, I often like to take this promise statement and think of it in terms of a student's perspective. And if you go to the next slide, Ron, from a student's perspective, I think this promise might look something like this. The Wenatchee School District promises that as a student, I am seen and valued, that I will have the support I need to thrive, both academically and in the social emotional realm, that I will know I belong, and I will graduate ready for my future. We are working to create the systems, structures, and practices needed to fulfill that promise for our students. So on the next slide, we're going to look at moving into the priorities and values that centered on creating thriving environments, providing equitable access and opportunities, and developing partnerships that enhance student success and well-being. And we'll talk briefly about each of those priorities before moving into a discussion of our big 6 vital signs that we are measuring. So thriving environments is where we're working on the social and emotional well-being support of our students and staff. And this work involves teaching, modeling, and practicing positive, inclusive behaviors through intentional social, emotional instruction and strategies. And the board recently spent some time in a workshop with several of our district leaders and coaches discussing our social emotional supports. And for anyone in the community who's interested in learning more about what we do at the elementary, middle, and high school levels to support social emotional well-being, that board workshop was on October 17th, and the recording is on our website available for folks to view. Another priority for us is opportunities, and we're moving to build the skills and knowledge of our staff in math and literacy. And our learning and teaching team is providing clear direction for instructional practices in those areas through engaging staff and focused professional development. And that includes the use of data to understand and respond to student needs. In addition, we are monitoring standards-based instruction through walkthrough data in the district, and I will be sharing some of the ways that we're monitoring that work in a moment. And partnerships, the district supports two-way communication that's culturally responsive and attentive to family, student, and community member needs. In many ways, education is a relationship business, and we just hosted one of our biggest parent outreach events of the year, our fall parent-teacher conferences. And many of our buildings had over 90% of our parents participate during conferences. So we were excited to have people back in the building with our staff and discussing student progress. But we also continue to maintain and build important relationships with community leaders and service providers in the area. We are once again hosting interagency meetings where service institutions from around this region meet in this room. In fact, we hosted one earlier today to share ideas and build awareness and connections with our community and the programs and services that are available to our staff, students, and families. We've partnered with local law enforcement, with Columbia Valley Community Health, Wenatchee Valley College, CAFE, the Chelan County PUD, Children's Home Society, and other community organizations and leaders this year in efforts to provide important information, programs, and support services for our students and families. And we will continue to pursue those partnerships in many areas. Okay, that brings us to the big 6, and these are the vital signs for our system. They give us a glance over the K-12 experience of a student, and they represent important markers in a student's journey towards graduation. We're going to look at each of these items individually and talk a little bit about how we're measuring some of these vital signs as indicators of where we're at with the system. So we'll start with the first one, experience high quality instruction. And this work really involves professional learning for our staff to build their skills and knowledge in math and literacy. And our learning and teaching team provides clear direction for instructional practice in those areas and is engaging staff in focused professional development, in particular in this year in professional learning community work and mathematics. And that again includes the use of data to respond and understand student needs. And additionally, it includes monitoring the teaching of standards-based instruction. We want our students to be participating in and receiving grade level standard or beyond instruction and assignments as they move through their career. The next slide shows briefly how we're going to measure some of the things around high quality instruction. The learning and teaching team is charged with collecting Big Six data. And this first item around high quality instruction involves observations in order to capture data around how our staff are engaging students and how they're leveraging instruction that is grade level and beyond. And so the team has created a form that we're going to be using as a part of an observation process to gather information about the level of standards that are being taught to our students, as well as some other instructional strategies that are important to us. So if you want to go to the next slide, Ron, this is another picture of some information that is on that customizable form. It includes 7 required data points that measure student engagement and grade level instruction. And individual schools have the ability to customize some parts of this form. But as a learning and teaching team and with our leadership team, we're going to be looking for some of these important markers around high quality instruction and gathering data that we can use to support staff with additional professional development as needed and get a sense of overall instruction in our district. Related to that is the work around our professional learning communities, and we're moving to ensure a guaranteed and viable curriculum for our students across the district. What you see here is a snapshot of work that has been done around guaranteed and viable curriculum. We're looking at building unit by unit, the lessons and assessments that will be used as instructional markers for our students moving forward. This has been a collaborative effort with our learning and teaching staff, and Heidi Busk and Amber Burks, our instructional coaches at the elementary and secondary level, to create this bookshelf, which is actually interactive. And we're going to show you a brief snippet of what's inside this Google site for our guaranteed and viable curriculum. And we'll show you about 3 minutes of this introductory video created by Heidi and Amber.
Hi, this is Heidi Busk.
And Amber Burks.
And we're here to share with you today our guaranteed and viable Google sites.
So the purpose of our site is to have a place where we could make visible all the work of our professional learning communities that are busy answering the questions of what you see here in this bookshelf. And to do the work of the bookshelf is the work of a professional learning community. And so this site helps operationalize and make visible all the work that our teams are doing.
So we'll start by sharing our 612 site. And you'll see as we move on to our PK5 site that you'll see a lot of similarities in the way that they're laid out and the work that is housed there.
So using our drop-down menu here, we'll see that it begins by grade level, intervention, and extension, and electives. So if I just choose 7th grade, and let's just take a look at ELA. The secondary site is, you'll see the parallels, as Heidi just said, to elementary. We start with conceptually how a professional learning community thinks. They begin by answering the question, what are our priority standards? And then the scope and sequence, which order will we teach those in? And we make collective agreements around that. And then we have unit plans and pacing guides to help us do the work. We also have added in a process for our PLCs where they, unit by unit, are writing a SMART goal for each priority standard. So this equips a team with tools that they need to be successful. And then we always include, we're doing a lot of work around the instructional strategies that have the most impact on student learning. So you'll see resources linked there. Then we go into assessment. How do we know students are learning? So these are our unit plans with common formative assessments and scales. You can see these are the 4 units that a 7th grade teacher will be teaching throughout the year. And then we begin to answer the question, what do we do if students are learning? What do we do if students aren't learning? So these are our resources in iReady and Power Up, our computer adaptive software, and also universal screeners, our assessment plan, our MTSS plan to equip teams. We have additional fluency assessments here for teams. And then we come to the spot where each team has their own data sheet where they're tracking student by student data to be responsive to each student's need. And then eventually, since this is new and we're building this year, teams would also be linking in their own individual building unit plans that they make from the district unit plan. So we have that consistency unit by unit happening across the system. And so now we're going to take a look at K-5.
So that brief video snippet gives you an idea of the robustness of the system that is being created by the learning and teaching team. It is a one-stop shop there on that Google site for our staff members to go for things related to curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Our PLC or professional learning community teams are using that site to access their own data for their building around their students and use that data to plan interventions. And I'll share a little bit more about that process as we move deeper into some of these strategic plan items. So the next item is we want students to feel like they belong and are connected. And you have seen in a board workshop, as I mentioned earlier, some of the things that we are engaging in around social emotional learning. And in particular, you had an opportunity at the board workshop to experience the 3 signature cell strategies from the Castle model with Jody Smith, Amy Speets, Jennifer Devereaux, Heidi Monroe, and Dr. Kalahar on October 17th. And we are intentionally measuring on an annual basis some information around students' sense of belonging and connectedness. So the next slide here shows some data that we are looking at on an annual survey. And as we move deeper into this work, we're going to continue to conduct a statistically reliable and valid annual survey to assess our students' sense of belonging and safety. And what you see here are 2 of the important questions from among the many on that survey that ask about whether or not students feel safe at school. And the second question we've highlighted here is there an adult at school who will help me if I need it? And that speaks to the sense of, do our students have at least one adult in the building that they're strongly connected with? So when we think about this sense of belonging and connectedness and how important that is to what we do with our students in relationships in the social emotional realm, we have a variety of questions related to these that we're looking at over time, giving us a sense of where we're at with that item on the Big 6. 3rd grade reading is also something that we're looking at closely. There's a lot of research around 3rd grade as a pivotal year in terms of reading for our students. And sometime during the elementary years between kinder and 3rd grade, students make the transition from I'm learning to read to I'm reading to learn. And that's an important transition in a student's career. So we're tracking that by individual, by skill attainment, so that we can have indicators on whether or not students are on track. And the next slide gives you a sense of how we're tracking that. So this is actually one of the sheets that we are using to track reading skills by student, by skill. And what you see here is a snapshot of the actual tracking sheet for one of our 3rd grade groups. second grade groups. I've removed the student names, but you can see each of those rows represents an individual student and the skill level of that student in some fundamental reading skills. So this helps us decide which students need intervention and the area in which they need intervention so that we can target the support in the area they need to get them back on track. Algebra is a gatekeeper in many ways. So we are also looking at how do we make sure students are ready for algebra. And we know that students who experience success in algebra tend to have greater access to higher level math courses and also greater success in those courses in the future. So being ready for success in algebra is important to us, and it begins early with a focus on fluency in basic facts, and that continues with an expanding understanding of number sense. On the next slide, you'll see that we are tracking progress in mathematics in the same way we just saw that we're tracking progress in reading. We're looking at the skills that lead to being ready for algebra. These are standards that we're looking at for each individual student, and we're using this work to, again, identify where do we need to intervene and pinpoint areas in which students need additional time and support in mathematics to succeed. So it gives you a more granular look at the way we're tracking data on an ongoing basis for students. Related to this work is also some professional development. I mentioned fluency as a critical factor in becoming ready for algebra by 8th grade. We recently had Jennifer Bay Williams come and do some work with our elementary and secondary staff on how to build fact fluency, which is all part of our math instructional identity work that's going on under the direction of the learning and teaching team, and in particular, Sarah Wall and the work she's done with Dr. Andy Boyd from North Central Educational Service District. And this one is an important one for freshmen at the high school in particular, but it goes on throughout the high school years. And 9th graders who end the year on track are 4 times as likely to graduate on time. It's a stronger indicator of future graduation rate than poverty, test scores, race, ethnicity, many of the other factors. This is the strongest indicator of graduation out there in the research. And when we talk about being on track for graduation for a freshman, that means they earn all of the credits that they attempt during their freshman year. That includes not just math, science, English language arts, but it's also PE, fine arts, music, other classes. Any credit that is attempted as a freshman, which is not earned, decreases the likelihood of that on-time graduation. So we're looking at those things closely, especially as the end of the semester is approaching. We're going to watch carefully which of our freshmen and all grade levels are on track. We've done some proactive stuff to get students ready for this 9th grade year, and that begins with some intentional transition supports from the 8th grade spring into the fall of the freshman year. And the district's made some intentional moves to build connections with students during their freshman year and continue those connections throughout their high school experience. One example is Stephanie Stuber is the freshman counselor this year at Wenatchee High School, and Stephanie will stay with that class as their counselor until they graduate, which provides increased opportunity to form relationships and get to know the students in that cohort over the next 4 years and monitor their needs. That's a recent shift in approach for the WHS team, and that was made in 2019-20. Previously, the counselor caseloads were split by last names according to the alphabet, but now a single counselor will follow the cohort for their 4 years at Wenatchee High School. But I mentioned this begins much earlier. So success for our freshman classes really starts with intentional coordination between our middle school and high school administrative staff and counselors. In the spring, The Wenatchee High School freshman counselor will meet with all the middle school counselors to discuss students and plan for those who may need additional social, emotional, academic, or attendance supports. And once they're in the door at Wenatchee High School, there is a system of counselors, social workers, graduation specialists, and intervention specialists that are ready to come alongside our students when there's a problem or concern. So we're watching those things closely for our graduates. And the last of our big 6 items is to have students involved in real world relevant learning experiences. And this is in part related to the expansion of a continuum of real world learning experiences that provide our students both career exploration opportunities inside and out of the classroom. Our science field experiences, our career and technical education programs, the Wenatchee Valley Technical Skills Center programs. Those are just some of the ways that we provide students with real world learning experiences. And what you see on this slide is our students engaged in some of those experiences. We've got students here at the Salmon Fest, which is something we partner with a variety of organizations to participate in. And students get to know a little bit about the history of the salmon and the work that is done by the Chelan County PUD and other organizations to preserve our salmon and the heritage and meaning of the salmon in the local Native American culture. You see pictures of students in our new junior ROTC program on their physical training day. Diana Hagland and I were able to be there for that event, and we're excited to have the junior ROTC program in the district, as well as some of our medical occupations classes, ag classes, and the student running the digging machine there is part of the sod work that's being done in the courtyard through one of our CTE classes that is working directly to remodel that area at Wenatchee High School. So I'm going to wrap this up and give you an opportunity to ask questions, but I will finish with this. You know, we know that our students come to our schools with unique lived experiences and at different starting points. And our promise that we looked at earlier acknowledges those realities. And our strategic plan provides us a framework within which we view students' differences as assets. And the key outcome of all of this work is that our graduates are ready for their future, whether that means college, vocational training, or a career. And I would like to say, as I wrap this up also, that I really can't take personal credit for any of this work. Many of the things that you saw here today are directly related to work that's done by my learning and teaching team in the cabinet and by our staff members at the district level, at the building level, across the district. And I want to thank all of our district staff for the work they do with students every day to move this plan forward. Do you guys have any questions about our strategic plan?
Thanks, Bill. Let's look right and left around the board.
I have comments and questions. So I think this is great work. As you mentioned, this is it's now we're getting to the meat of the plan. I really appreciate the first one where we watched the video of the guarantee and viable curriculum. I think in the past, there's been questions as to what our kids are learning, what's being taught in the classroom, and going into that in depth in that, you know, we see ELA, math, science, history, how it's from the district to the building, to the and grade level into the school. So I think that's really valuable for us as board members to see, but also for our community. For the belonging and connected, other than a survey, are we tracking it? Because as we know, students, they might answer based on the kind of day they're having. So are we monitoring or tracking that's how students, how we as a district are progressing in that area, other than a survey?
Yes, I mean, it's part of the work that we do with our social emotional every day. And students have zones of regulation where on a daily basis, they're able to share with staff members where they're at in their social emotional realm for the day. In fact, I was at Washington Elementary School today and had an opportunity to see students engaged in walk to intervention. And I saw their zones of regulation and the students, as they checked into their walk to intervention model today, we're showing the instructor where they were at with their social emotional realm. So it's become part of an ongoing process that we look at, not just in these snapshots, but really on a daily basis with students. And we have other measures outside of what you see on the survey. There is also a healthy youth survey that's given to certain grade levels each year through OSPI. It's another great measure, and gives us a snapshot of not just social and emotional well-being, but a host of other items that we monitor throughout the district. Cabinet.
Yeah, Bill, the other part of that particular Big Six item is around attendance rates and office referral rates. We also monitor those really as kind of the results. If we're doing our job well on the SEL front, we should see attendance rates and discipline rates reflect that as well. So.
Excellent. Thank you for adding that, Mike. Other questions?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Oh, please go.
with number 4, ready for algebra, how are we doing with our high cap students? So I'm not really sure what the concern was, but for example, Pioneer has a different system than say Foothills in regards to an 8th grader or a 6th grader being able to take algebra because the availability is not quite there for a higher grade. So how are our highly capable students being able to access the classes, the courses that they need at the secondary level?
I will speak a little bit to that, and then Cabinet, why don't you add to what I'm going to say here. Algebra and the Ready for Algebra is an area that we're looking at in terms of what I said earlier was system structures and practices across the district. We know from the recent equity audit that, for example, our Latino students in general access Algebra 1 later. And we're trying to look at what are the factors that contribute to that, as well as build a guaranteed and viable curriculum with some consistency across our buildings and grade levels. Cabinet, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, just in the middle school level, for example, there are different levels or different amounts of students that are ready for algebra in the middle school. And so sometimes the demand for the class is different depending on which middle school you're talking about. But what we don't generally do is say, because there's only 3 students at this school ready for algebra, we're not going to allow them to take algebra. What we're trying to do is find different ways for them to take algebra, whether it's via online or whether it's going to the high school or some other option in that regard. One of the things we've been aware of is some of the research around accelerating students in mathematics too quickly. And so being mindful of that as well, that it's not a race to get them there. It's about getting them prepared to be successful once they get there. Because some of the research comes back that if we push too quickly, then students do experience some difficulties when they get in the higher levels of math because they've missed some of the foundational work and didn't have necessarily the ability to go slow and process at their own rate. So.
I do have one to really to check whether I'm understanding things correctly. In your tracking system for skills, whether it be in literacy or mathematics, we've got the green, red. I'm always under the impression that this is pretty much real time, so that it's coming in as students finish assignments and it can be monitored. And so intervention or correction can be very rapid in its response. And that's my impression. I was interested to listen to some talk about other school districts who use the same tools, but at quite wide intervals, and they weren't very effective. How close are we to being in real time, and can you comment on how that works?
I believe our cycles are 4 to 6 weeks. We do have the larger measures that you're talking about. We'll measure in the fall, the winter, and the spring. But what you're looking at here is information that's used on shorter cycles. And you guys
Yeah.
want to talk about that?
What you were looking at on those data sheets, those little colored spaces with the numbers in them, those are results from common formative assessments. And so those are assessments, for example, if the cabinet, if we were an ELA team, we're all teaching the same level of ELA, we would agree upon the standard that we are teaching, and then we would agree upon how we're going to measure success. So we would create what we call a common formative assessment, which we would give at very quick intervals, so that we are able to monitor how our students are doing, so that we can take those data and then adjust, and optimally, we would actually regroup the students based on need. So potentially I'm taking a group of students with a very specific need based on that data. Corey is potentially taking a group of students with a different need. So that data is not individual assignments in that way, Martin, but it's also not like every 6 weeks we're only putting data in there. The data is coming much more quickly than that.
I guess the only question I have is maybe thinking too far ahead. But what is our process or protocol going to be when it comes to updating or refreshing the plan? Because I assume this isn't 5 years and we're just going to knock this out and then we're done. What are we doing administrative side to make sure this is working and or being refreshed as needed so it continues to move forward?
You mean the strategic plan overall?
Yes.
Mhm. I'll speak a little to that. And again, cabinet, feel free to plop in here. So what you've seen as we've kind of gone through this is a lot of the work that's related to our PLCs, our professional learning communities. And one of the flavors that you see in here is that this work is being done unit by unit. And as the teams progress through these units each year, it's going to be an opportunity to relook at things as they collaborate around data, make improvements based on what they learned in the prior year about where students may experience difficulties moving through. And we will have this record built, as you saw on the Google site, that each year staff members can go back to see how things went in the prior year, what they did to intervene with students in the prior year. And the idea is that we can continue to build that robustness and have a historical record of where we've been that will help us decide where we need to go.
I guess I would like a comment on that. I'm glad you asked that, Julie, because I, again, want to calibrate my mindset. I was very pleased to see 5 years in the strategic plan, because the way I saw it was foundations of layer upon layer. So at the beginning, you had a lot of emphasis on PLCs and developing a structure. From that, you would raise the performance level of both students and teachers, and therefore there would be a progression. And I would assume then that your goals and even to some extent your techniques might gradually progress through that 5-year period. Am I right or wrong?
I think you're correct. For example, we are going to be tracking instructional data that will help us decide in the future where we might be going with different types of professional development that would be needed to push the staff forward. And some of the other things we're tracking around social emotional supports might impact professional development we provide in that realm as well. Cabinet, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to add that one of the activities that we did in our learning and teaching team this year was to try to cast a vision for the work that we do for the future. And a lot of us were kind of stumped on that question at first. We're like, oh my gosh, well, we all have a vision on where we want our work to go, whether it's social emotional learning or it's PBIS or it's ELA or math or whatever that work is. And we all have targets that we want to meet this year and right now. But some of that work depends on how far we're able to push the system. And so what we've done is all of the cabinet members have created action plans and strategies that go along with each of the components of the strategic plan. And so within there, we have yearly goals, and then we have vision casting goals. So goals that are for the future. And we hope that we make those goals gutsy enough that we're pushing ourselves and we're pushing the system. But a lot of it will depend on how far we can make with our incremental steps along the process. But it is definitely things that we're thinking about. And a lot of times we have to slow ourselves and say, okay, whoa. We do have 5 years to get some of this work done. We need to push the system slow and we need to do it the right way, but we also need to have those goals so that we are keeping, to your point, Julie, the work in front of us and keep it relevant and moving forward.
And I would finish maybe with this. The strength of this cabinet team is vital to moving the district forward. We're in a potential transition where we're looking for a new leader for the school district. But whoever steps into the role, the strength of this cabinet is going to help ensure that the strategic plan continues to move forward. As potentially someone new may be in this role and they'll be learning the plan as they come in the door, this cabinet team has taken ownership and responsibility for various aspects of this plan and will continue to push it forward.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Cabinet. The next item on the agenda is the action item of the second read of the policies that. Oh, closer to me. No. Okay, sorry, looking away from it. Action policies, the second read of policies 5011, 4210, 5001, 5610, and 5612, which received first readings last board meeting. It's action item. Is anybody ready to propose approval of these policies?
I would like to move to approve the proposed policies as they were reviewed at last board meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you, Maria. Is there any discussion of those policies? That being the case, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the policies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. So those 5 policies are now approved and will go into our policy handbook. And at that point, I will move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. I've got some great things to share tonight. Our football team won the academic state championship. So congratulations to our boys football team for their academic state championship. The football team earned the highest grade point average amongst all 4A classification teams in the state. And that means the Washington Interscholastic Athletic Association will deliver a patch and a medallion to distribute to each of the team members. And in addition, the team will be acknowledged at the state football championships. We also, the past weekend, had our final band competition for the year. The Golden Apple Band traveled to Auburn last weekend for that final competition, and the band received first place in parade and competition for Division A and second place overall. So congratulations to the band. And I also would like to say many thanks to the bus drivers and our transportation staff for safely transporting those students over to the competition so that they were able to compete and earn those awards. I would like to also note that our girls volleyball team won the district tournament this weekend, and they will be heading to state as well. So congratulations to the girls volleyball team. So some great things going on in the district. Just a reminder to the board that our schools will be celebrating Veterans Day this week, many with special assemblies to honor those who have served and do serve currently our country. And I want to invite the board and our community members to reach out and join in those celebrations. You can reach out to your school and find out more about when their particular celebration will occur. And the last thing on my report tonight is just a reminder to the board about our November 21st board self-assessment. That workshop is scheduled from 1 to 3:30, which is a little bit longer than our normal workshop sessions have been. And we need you to complete the survey using the link that Kim sent you by November 9th, which is tomorrow, as the workshop facilitator needs time to compile the results before our meeting on the 21st. And that is my report.
Thank you very much, Bill. Short, concise, and to the point. Important stuff. Board communication is the next item. Julie, do you want to go first?
I don't have much, but I just wanted to add that the girls soccer won the district title and is playing their first game at the state tomorrow. So go girls soccer. Aside from that, I have nothing.
I had the opportunity to attend the Career and College Expo put on by the ESD. It was a district-wide, beyond our district, ESD district event, but I did see a lot of Wenatchee High School buses pull in and students. I also saw our SROs. So that was a really nice event, which was targeted for a diverse group of students. So that was nice.
Well, and I had the pleasure of watching the band not only perform in the Auburn competition, but the first half of that day is spent performing in the parade, the Veterans Day Parade at Auburn, which is really exceptional. And yes, a huge thank you to the bus drivers, not only for getting them over there, but more importantly for getting them home safely, because the passes were closed and it was very sketchy. And but they were very communicated with the head of transportation so well, and then led us as parents to be comfortable in their ability to safely transport kids. And that was huge, because that was my child was on that bus as well. So that was a real pleasure. And the band will be performing at Wenatchee's Veterans Day Parade on Friday. So that's another opportunity to see how great they are in parade mode.
Thank you. For my board communication today, I'd like to bring everyone up to date on the starting steps of the superintendent search. And I'm actually going to end with a question, because we very much want to find a way to keep all of us, as we go through this process, well informed as we go through the weeks and months. At this special meeting a week ago, Drs. Lauder and Balderas, the McPherson and Jacobson consultants, presented drafts of their recommended search calendar. And following one-on-one interviews with all of the board members, their preliminary list of desired superintendent characteristics. They use a consent process, which we did with discussion. And following that, with some explanation and clarification of the steps that were taken in the board, they took their understanding and direction and went on to the next stage. We also at that time talked about the respective roles of the consultants, the community at large, and the board. All of this will be more accurately reflected in the minutes than my summary, but that's basically what we did. So since the board meeting, McPherson and Jacobson made, as I said, these adjustments to the calendar and profile, and they've moved into the next stage, which is the advertising stage. The position description, which was shown a week ago, is now on McPherson's and Jacobson's own recruitment website. It will be posted on the Wenatchee School District Superintendent search page, which you can find if you go drop-down menu from the board on the front page of the website. And all that and much more information will be loaded as we go through this process, so all of us can see what's going on there. And that same profile will be used for postings on industry association recruiting and advertising websites, which will begin perhaps even tomorrow. So that part of it is moving ahead. To that, I suspect in about a week, when I look at their other clients, it's taken about a week or 10 days from when they start with the characteristics to adding a promotional brochure information from the school district, which then informs prospective candidates that we're a good place to work in and good people and have an exciting school district. And that work is underway with district staff and Diana Haglund, communications director. So that will be then added to that, and we'll see a fuller promotional part of the recruitment. The scheduled closing date for applications is January the 12th, 2023. One of the things that happened last week is they convinced us that actually going out early and strong is a good idea, that the winter holidays are when a lot of people look for jobs and think about it. And this is actually a faster schedule than we looked at in the summer, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Within the district, We're getting ready for stakeholder group meetings and a survey. The survey will be open to everybody. And from that input, the consultants will pile input from students, employees, parents and families, and community members and organizations. These meetings will take place in English and Spanish. They'll include both small focus groups and larger forum style meetings. Monday, November the 28th and Thursday, December the 1st have been chosen for on-site in-person meetings with the consultants. Look for more information as this is developed. And all the board have put in suggestions, and Diana and Kim are working hard on putting the packages together. And it'll depend on people's availability, but I think there'll be plenty of opportunity for people. If needed, it's possible that these two dates will be supplemented either with additional remote Zoom meetings, which might suit people, and the possibility of adding time during the first week in December. So the community feedback is kind of what we're looking at as the next major step, and it'll provide important information for the board when the board determines the criteria at the selection and interviewing stages, which will happen in January and February of next year. So I now get to my question. I've tried to give an information on the steps. And the question is there an effective way to provide updates during the search process? We discussed this a little bit last week. When you look at the calendar, the critical choice points in the calendar, which is when new findings are delivered and there actually are decisions to be taken, are right now scheduled to be January the 10th board meeting, when the stakeholder input report is to be reviewed and delivered, and then the selection and interview meetings, which take place after January the 31st. At that point, we might have a lot of strong information and things moving fairly fast. But this is why I asked the question. The consultants will also be on site during the stakeholders meetings, but at that point, they'll be listening, not saying. So I wanted to give an update for everybody to get reminded, and we do want to keep this right in front of our eyes as we go through it. But I am open to hearing input on what kind of status report is requested at other times as we progress through that. At a minimum, we can do an update at every regular board meeting, and then obviously there'll be special meetings on those two occasions. So that's my question for board input at that point. Does this sound like it works for now, and we'll see how we go? Okay, good. And we will try both for the community, and not all the board members get to see everything. Sometimes we put in individual input. And so we do want to make sure that this process is as well understood as possible. Thank you. That is all I have for board communication. Now to others.
I just have a question on that. So if the consultants send us some report or information, will that be circulated still to the board?
Yes, I'm imagining that it'll go to Kim as the hub, as executive assistant to all of us. And so material like that from the consultants will go to Kim and then to other people. In many cases, it may go to the website. For example, there will be a link on the website to the McPherson and Jacobson job description. I might have missed that in my update. I did say it, yeah. It's not there yet. But then you'll be able to see how they precisely how they modified the schedule and slightly changed the profile after the last meeting, taking into account what was said. The link was not, yeah, we just wanted to make sure that their actual job description is finalized. And I think the link will be within a couple of days, we will be able to put it on our own website. Into executive session for a period of 15 minutes to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a staff member. Pursuant to District Policy Number 1410 and RCW 423110, this discussion will be closed to the public. The school board is not expected to take final action following the executive session. So I'm looking at that and allow a couple of minutes for us to move to a different room. And so the 15 minutes will start. Let's say at 8 o'clock, just to be safe. Oh, we're still on summertime on that clock. Sorry about that. Okay. Thank you very much, or those of you who attended. The executive session is completed. It is 7:15, and I will adjourn the regular board meeting.